Welcome to the Rialto Marketing Podcast. Today's episode is a revenue acceleration series interview where we talk to seven-figure B2B professional service firm owners that are actively trying to grow their business and get to the next level. We talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly so that you can learn from their experience. Hi, I am Tim Fitzpatrick with Rialto Marketing, where we believe you must remove your revenue roadblocks to accelerate growth, and marketing shouldn't be difficult. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. Really excited to have Michael Spinoza with me from Shield 7 Consulting. Michael, welcome, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig into this. We're going to talk a little bit about your past company, your current company. I think lot to be learned from the experience that you have. Before we do that, I want to ask you a few rapid fire questions. You ready to rock?
I'm ready to rock. Let's do it.
Okay. Very quickly, what do you do and how long have you been doing it?
I am the Chief Executive Officer of Shield 7 Consulting, which is an engineering-first cybersecurity firm, and I've been doing it for just over a year. February was my one-year anniversary.
Cool. And how long has Shield 7 been in business?
10 years.
10 years. What's the most important lesson you've learned in running a business? Could be Shield 7, could be Unleashed.
Most important lesson that I've learned, that's a tough one, but it is for a small business, it's to take necessary risks.
No reward without risk, right?
That's absolutely correct.
Now, I know growing a business can get hard sometimes. Do you have any kind of mantra or something motivational that you say or share with your team to help you guys push through those times when it's tough?
Well, so it's interesting. I have probably two, but the one that's most near and dear to my heart is the price of anything is the life that you're willing to exchange for it. And I think that's true in all aspects of anybody's life. If you look at, we often look to professional sports players or people that have accomplished great things. But one thing you're always clear about is that they gave everything for that, whatever that thing was.
Yeah. And oftentimes we don't see that.
Right. So
the price of anything is the life you're willing to exchange for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great one. So when we initially connected, we talked a little bit about your previous company, Unleashed, which you grew to about 8 million in top line revenue over 11 years. This time around with Shield 7, you said, man, I think that I can do this in much less time. What will help speed things up for you this time around?
Absolutely. So there's three main things that cripple every small business from growth. And if you join any, we call it Vistage, CEO Roundtable, anywhere, there's always the three same problems that come up for every small business owner. And those are capital, resources, people, and contacts, sales. And it's almost universal. It's almost universal, and it becomes almost like a circular discussion. So when we look at those three problems, we have to realize that money comes from somewhere, right? We either raise it or we leverage it. And one of the biggest lessons that I learned was what was done with Unleashed over, I'm going to call it a total span of, it was 11, 12-ish before, so about 15. And what I learned in that process was I could have done that in 7, but I was unwilling to take certain risks that affected a myriad of different things. I was unwilling to take certain risks, and almost all of those had to do with me mortgaging something for the future. And here's what I mean by that. So when we break this down, it's simple, is that you either raise money, take a loan, or you mortgage your profit. There's no secret sauce to this. There's only three ways to use capital, right? And so early on in the first years, I was always worried about having enough money to continue to grow, to protect my people. And that is a concern that is worth having, but not to a detriment. We have to be realistic about where we are if we're trying to grow a small business. So I spent the first 5 years hoarding all my money like a chipmunk, making sure that everybody was covered for a year or two, but I wasn't servicing my staff or my clients or our opportunities by doing that. So instead of raising money or taking a loan out from the bank, I started leveraging that capital that I had built up. And then I started using the profit to put back into the business. Now, what people don't talk about is that was a detriment to me, but it actually, for the short term, but the long term became a much different view, right?
Yeah.
It became a much different view. The other thing that I really learned in that process that took me 2 or 3 years to figure out was hard truth really hurts. And so I remember it was 2 or 3 years ago. At this time I was a smoker, and I was pacing outside in front of my office smoking, and I was having a heart-to-heart with my partner, Scott Greenwell, who was a major contributor in the business. And I said, I took a real honest review of where we're at. I said, we're not really good at anything. If I had to rate our firm today, I would rate it a 5 or a 6 out of 10. We'll take whatever comes to us. We'll do anything to capture work. And that's not what's going to make us great. Not for a small business. That's not what's going to take us there. And that was a pivotal moment because we decided to invest in a platform that the world knows 100 times over, but before then they did not, which was called Drupal. We invested in Drupal and we said, this is our direction. We're going to be open source experts because it dominates the web area. And we're going to redefine how working with a professional services firm is done. Now it's more commonplace, but at the time, the model change was revolutionary. And that is what really fostered a lot of growth.
So at that point, you decided to focus and double down on Drupal and be experts at Drupal.
We had to get good at something.
Yeah.
So many small businesses are plagued. And I speak to the services firms out there. I want to be very clear about my professional background and my experience is I am a consulting services guy. And so with that kind of background, that's very different than, let's say, a product. If you're building a technology product, there's different ways to manage those businesses. They're operated completely differently.
Yeah.
And so in my world, I had to become really proficient and expert at something to set myself apart. And in the services world, but we see with small businesses that are often hamstrung, let's say very small, let's say micro small in the $1 to $2 million range, right? They will capture any piece of revenue, even if it doesn't fit exactly what they do, which spreads them very thin and makes them experts of none. Yeah. So they build no reputation for being great at something that the people need or want.
Yeah.
And they view it differently at the time because they see the short-term game, not the long-term. And that was a huge difference maker for us.
So once you made that choice, business started to grow.
So absolutely. I'm not great at the years, Tim. So I can't tell you exactly what year, but early on. So I'm going to say 2009 to 2010. In that time frame, we had come into January after we had made this shift. And I think Unleashed at that time had like a couple $100 in its account. I mean, we were right there. And then everything exploded because we took a big chance. We took a shot on Drupal and we landed the organization's largest contract ever through all the efforts we had done through the small Drupal projects that we were doing. And that propelled us to do amazing things on that platform and to expand into web application development on the open source stack still.
Yeah.
And that was our thing, is Drupal was a tool in our toolbox, but we were an open source web application firm at the end of the day, because the Drupal sites that you build are typically very complex. They're not like other sites that would say be on WordPress or a simpler platform. These were very complex websites. So they were really web applications at the end of the day.
But you, at the time you made that decision, you were already doing Drupal. You just decided, hey, we've been doing this. This is the path that makes the most sense for us. And we're going to stop doing all this other stuff.
No.
Okay.
So here's how it happened. We were doing .NET Nuke, we were doing WordPress, we were doing Joomla, we were doing anything that anybody had. And we were trying to leverage the staff, and we'd be like, oh, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And there is a time in a company's innovation where that step was necessary for us to learn, to touch everything, to be part of everything. And we really hadn't done any Drupal at that point. When we had the revelation that there was really nothing special about us and that this could be found anywhere, we realized we had a serious problem on our hands as a team. And when I say team, I don't just mean me and Scott. I mean the founders, the bedrock of Unleashed Technologies. That included Colin Odell and Ben Thomas and Matt Curtin and lots of people that were with us very, very early on. I sat down and they said, we need to figure out something that's going to be a difference maker. And the team brought together Drupal, and they said, this is the future. And I said, I don't like it very much, but I understand. I did not like Drupal. I thought it broke the confines of how content management platforms or systems worked at that time. It totally shattered what we would call the norm. It used tagging structures. It used concepts for nodes, different things on the way the whole thing was architected was completely different. And they said, if this is where the future is, we're going to invest all of our time, all of our effort into this. And every website we do moving forward is going to be Drupal.
It's going to be Drupal.
It's going to be Drupal. And we made that conscious decision.
And when you made that shift, did you update, your marketing message, your website? What?
Yes.
Do you remember?
Yes, absolutely. We updated our marketing message, everything. And one of the things that we did that may be even more palpable, because technology alone doesn't make a firm grow. You could have a group of experts in the hottest technology possible, but that company doesn't grow. One of the big things that we did was we created a model called the growth package. Now, the growth package is known by a lot of different things today. But at the time, if you asked, let me back up for a second. If you put a pin in the map and you draw a circle with a 5-mile radius, right? You're going to find 20, 40, 50 people that say they're web agencies in that space. And one thing was clear about all of them. They all did around $1 million. Like, no one really broke through that glass ceiling. And this is a different time now, so those numbers may have changed. But, almost 17 years ago at this point, that was the glass ceiling. And I said, and I would talk to all of them. I was friends with all of them, and we weren't even there. We were making close to nothing. I was taking no salary, all of those kinds of things. And they all said the same thing. They said, you either do things firm fixed price, or time and materials. I said, that doesn't really make a lot of sense, because all I see is unhappy customers. And that was the experience that I was having with my customers. Like, I give them this firm fixed price quote, they'd want to change, and everybody'd be mad because there's more money being demanded on the table. And I was like, this is really frustrating for people. There's got to be a better way. So we came up with this concept of the growth package, which again, now is practice, but at the time was revolutionary. Was you would have a set amount of hours with us every month. And for that, a team would be assigned to you that would include designers, developers, project managers, whatever resources you needed. So as your needs and demands changed, the team could constantly be handling that for a predictable annual budget that you could work within. And then it also set the premise that the website was a living entity that was always growing and changing. It wasn't a thing that you did and it was done.
Yeah.
And we went all in on that. And there was so much client education that had to happen at that time. And I remember bringing this to my peers. I said, this is what I'm thinking of doing. And so many people were like, never work. People will never be interested in this. There's no way that anybody would ever get into this type of situation. And I found when tons of people think really negatively about an idea, like digital currency, it's probably a good idea to check it out. So we ran with it. We updated all of our marketing because we had to educate. So we made so much material. Like we had charts of, this is how much it costs you to have full-time employees to do this. This is what a growth package gives you. you have access to all these resources for a quarter of the cost. And we really had a solid something there. And I do think that marketing that in conjunction with being an expert in a particular platform at that time changed our stars.
I can't remember where I heard this, but it's always stuck with me from a marketing and a sales standpoint. And it's specificity sells. You guys got super specific about what you were doing. You specialized, and that resonates with people. If you got a Drupal site, do you want somebody that's an expert in Drupal or somebody that dabbles in it? Like,
right.
No, you want an expert. So I think I always love to hear these types of stories, because it just confirms what this is not a new concept. I mean, people say specialize all the time, niche down, focus. But so many of us have a hard time actually making the choice to do that. I guess we just need to keep hearing more stories about.
Well, I'm, and I want to be fair to the entire world. I don't know how people would view this, but I consider it a success. And one of the things that I would say to people is not all stories will end successfully. And that's a hard message to hear but if you don't take that shot, like I said, what are the things that I learned? You've got to take risks. You've got to take game-changing risks to actually break through. Because if you don't, you're just gonna. If I have 10 landscapers over to my house, what am I shopping on?
The first thing I would say is you're probably shopping on price.
That's a bad place to be.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. If you look at a commodity, this is the easiest way. Plumbers, electrician, landscapers, payroll services, any of these kinds of things, a lot of times those decisions are driven by price, unless you can show an extreme value. Unleashed was never driven by price because we were looking for extreme value. We're the best at this. We have the most unique model for delivery. We're worth the extra money. Yeah. An interesting fact, up until I sold Unleashed Technology, we were almost an entirely US-based team, which is actually unheard of in the end. Meaning, like, we had a couple people around the world, but they were the best at what they did.
Yeah.
Not because I was outsourcing to get my rates down, which so many people do. We didn't sacrifice on price and rate. We didn't make those sacrifices because we felt that we had something special that people needed.
When you didn't have to, because you had created differentiation.
Absolutely.
People weren't comparing apples to apples. It was an apples to oranges comparison. They're like, we want the orange. Absolutely. So, and that's what happens, right? When you create differentiation, you no longer compete on price. The price conversation is over.
Absolutely.
So I think thank you for sharing that and breaking it down, because there was a ton of value in that. How are you taking those learning lessons and applying them with Shield 7?
Well, I know it's working because I came in February of 2022, and I'm in an active company, so I have to be more careful with our revenue goals. But we are already on track to double this year. And as opposed to it taking 5 years to figure out a recipe, we kind of know the recipe right away. Yeah. And I would say that the biggest things that have to be changed is funny. My specialties as a CEO are 3 things: strategy, sales, and marketing. And of those 3 things, I think the most valuable, you can't weight them equally. They're weighted differently for different times. And what I would say is the first thing is the strategy always has to be sound. That's 1. 2 is marketing, and 3 is sales. And people would say, why would you put sales in 3rd position? Because if you do a good job with marketing, you have so much less to do in sales. There's so much less work to do. One of the hardest parts that a small business faces is they're constantly being challenged if they're viable. Well, marketing is a great way to solve that problem by establishing thought leadership, by establishing really strong marketing materials. I can't tell you, even today, as I come back to a smaller organization and we're looking, and we're going to continue doubling in size. But as I look at people that are now my new peers that are at the same spot, they'll create things. So I'll give you a great example. They'll create marketing, they'll work on the wording, but they won't bring in somebody external to check out. And I do this all the time to say, I source it with my peers. I'm like, does this resonate with you? The feedback you get is amazing.
Yeah.
They're like, no, what are you talking about? You know,
that's not it.
That's not it. And then they design it themselves, but they're not designers. We have to meet a certain professional standard for people to take a small business seriously. And if we don't meet those standards, we get crippled. And that comes back to the capital. They don't want to spend money on that stuff because they can't actualize an immediate ROI. And I said, the ROI that comes from, and I'm talking specifically to marketing right now, the ROI that comes from marketing, I always say trails 6 months. So as you don't know if something's working or not working till 6 months from the moment it's released into the wild, because you need time for that message to saturate, and you have to have a strong promotional plan for that to get in front of people and for people to start absorbing that message. And it's tough for people to realize that. If you talk to a lot of people that start companies are very brave, but they're also very analytical. And sometimes that can be the Achilles heel for a small business owner, in that they look at something and they go, okay, and I would say this is true of sales and marketing. If I spend X, how much am I going to get in return for that? And the answer is, especially when you're small, is you don't even have a baseline. You don't know the answer to that. So you're never going to invest in anything, because no one can get no consultant, no vendor, no event, no opportunity. Nothing has a guarantee on it, and it never will. The only way you can learn what works is by taking those chances, by spending that money and figuring out, is my messaging right? Is how I'm selling this to people working correctly? I found that if you're very risk averse, but you still need to make a big splash, investing in conferences and shows, especially with speaking engagements, is a wonderful way to get your small business moving.
Yeah.
And the truth to that is that costs money. $2,000 to exhibit, a couple $1,000 for the tchotchkes and the booth, but the booth is reusable, right? Then if you want a speaking engagement, some conferences, that comes at a cost. At other ones, you can compete for it by submitting a really great talk and selling. But a lot of times for small businesses that don't have a previous namesake, there's going to be a cost associated with that.
Michael, you just dropped so much value right there. I want to pull some things out that I think are easy for people to overlook. One of the things you touched on there was marketing and sales. If marketing is doing its job, it is feeding warm leads to sales. The sales process becomes much easier when marketing is working correctly and as it should. That's one thing that I think tremendous value. The other thing you touched on too was just about getting outside eyes, right? As business owners, it's very hard for us to think objectively about our business. Like, we're too close to the fire. We gotta ask, hey, this is what we're thinking about. We need to get outside eyes, from people, from current clients, right? We need to get that feedback to make sure that we're not missing something. Super important. The other thing you touched on was ROI with marketing, and it trails 6 months. Marketing is an investment. It takes time and it takes a lot of work.
Yes, it does.
And we have to view things from a long-term perspective, not short-term. If we're short-term, we're going to make all kinds of decisions with marketing that are going to derail us. Because so many people give up on marketing long before they've actually given it the chance to actually work. And gosh, a lot of times they haven't even identified, like, what metrics are we going to track? What are we going to track that's going to help us identify whether we're actually getting traction and whether this is working or not?
So, and I couldn't agree with you more. And I can always, there's so many examples that I can use, and I want to use one or two here that are really important. The first thing I would say about a business owner that's very proud and excited about what they're doing, that's full of that energy, right? Like when Unleashed was started, I was in my 20s. So Mike at 44 has a different energy level than Mike at 28.
Right.
I like to think my energy level is still very high, but it's definitely different. But I remember looking back on something that's very important. When people would ask my wife what I would do, she'd be like, "Oh, he builds websites." And I'd be like, "No, it's more complicated than that." And I would be like, "You can't just say it like that, because then I sound small time." And I would have that opinion. But the truth is, she had simplicity of messaging.
Yeah.
I was drawing the conclusion that wasn't complex enough for them to be impressed by what we did. And there's more than another couple times where I got calls from my wife was talking to somebody whose spouse ran a company and was a marketing director. I'd be like, yeah, your wife said you build websites. I'd be like, oh my God, why do I feel like I have to lay out this big fancy message that is overdone? Now, did I make it more complex than that? Yes, I'm not going to lie. But I learned from that later on in Unleashed. Not early on. Early on, I was like, we are an enterprise web application firm that uses best. Like, it was this long tirade,
right,
explaining things to people. And what I learned was I was eliminating candidates and prospects by not having the right marketing message. I think another thing that I've really learned in marketing is that, or I would say, sales are directly impacted by marketing, but short-term sales decisions are more dangerous than any other type of decision. So going away from marketing, short-term sales decisions, I have made some serious mistakes in my time on taking on certain clients or certain opportunities because it wasn't a short-term gain. Like, business owners will make these kinds of decisions at times of distress. And there's definitely a couple I wish I could get back.
Yeah.
I've really taken those lessons forward to Shield 7. And at Shield 7, I mean, we're a slam dunk over here. This is one of the most talented crews of people that I have ever seen in my life. And the product's rock solid. So I have no concern over what the quality of our product is. Remember, when we started Drupal, we were building into it. We were learning as we were going. We didn't start with some. Here, I've got a team of absolute experts working on some of the largest security environments in the world. Like, I have those components. So it's a blessing to me on my second run that I'm coming in with this component completed, right? Like, these capabilities built in. But I would tell you, short-term sales decisions are the most deadliest to a small business when you're not looking at the big. I can't tell you how many other peers have talked about that, but like, we were down on revenue. I really thought this guy was going to be a problem for us in the consulting world, but we really needed the cash. So I took on the client, and that client ended up costing them twice as much as they got paid when it was all said and done.
Yeah. It
hurt their staff. It could have caused attrition, people to quit. We've taken clients that have been so tough that, and I'm talking the Unleashed side, that I lost good people over that. And I only had to learn that lesson once.
Yeah.
Right. You only have to learn that lesson once, but those are real journeys. Those are real things that happen.
I think a lot of us have made decisions like that. Frankly, it's easy to fall into that. And the thing that really sucks is, go to it. Most of us can see it. We already know, but we feel like we have to do it.
Yes.
And sure enough, like, you get near the end and you're like, I knew it. I should have listened to my gut, but I didn't.
It's talking to you. Absolutely. Yeah. The whole time.
Well, and that's another thing too, where specializing, really honing in on who your ideal clients are, helps you avoid making those mistakes, because when you really know who you work with, you have a measuring stick, so that when you have a conversation with somebody, you're like, are they checking these boxes or are they not?
Right.
If they're not, it's going to be a no. And hey, it doesn't mean you can't help them, right? You can send them somewhere else because you're just not a good fit.
Absolutely. And I would say, I always live by riches and niches. And so when you're building a small business, riches and niches are very valuable. When we start scaling into like 30 million, 50 million, large, when you see people breaking out of those specializations, and again, I'm in the service world.
Yeah.
I'm not in the product world. A product world can stay in its niche and make hundreds of millions of dollars, depending on what it's doing. But in the service world, when you start breaking and you want to continue expansion, you now have enough capital to seed entire teams to go build a new line of revenue, as opposed to saying, Bob, go check this out, see if we get lucky.
Yeah.
And that's a different way of doing things. I would my goal for Shield 7 is in the next 3 years to get to somewhere around 15 or $20 million. And in that zone, I think that we can have a real positive impact on the Mid-Atlantic community. I think we can have a tremendous impact, and that we can do a lot of good. We can do a lot of good for people. We can protect their assets while still giving them the same kind of workflow that they've always wanted.
Yeah. What do you see as what do you think are the top three challenges, growth challenges that you're facing with Shield 7 at this point?
It's always the same. And nobody wants to hear it. Capital,
Yeah.
resources, contacts. It's
I
always,
thought you were going to say that.
every small business in the service industry, it's always, if you put 10 people in a room and you ask me to write down what each of their problems is, and they don't get to speak, and I'm just gauging them by perception, just by looking at them, I'm going to toggle between those three. The vast majority of people are resources. And I'll tell you why resources. Resources are attached to capital. And people say, no, it's not in a services firm. Yes, it is. Because if your resources are fully billable in a professional services model, and it's time to expand, by the time that client's ready to sign the contract, you don't have that resource on deck. And if you looked at modern hiring, somebody just doesn't pop up in a day and jump on the team. It's a 60, 90-day cycle to find the right person minimum to join your team. So you have to onboard talent well ahead of demand. But they're scared to spend that capital, Tim.
Yeah.
Problem, one of the three pillars. They're scared to spend the capital, so they don't have the resources. So who suffers? If they don't have the resources and they're taking on the clients suffer.
That's
because
right.
There's not enough resources. So then that wraps back to contacts. If all of your clients aren't highly referring clients, now you're low on contacts. And when I say contacts, I mean sales contacts, to be specific. Okay. Like people that are helping drive revenue for you because they're either direct clients or they're partners. They're helping drive your service. So you can fix that by spending the capital to front load the resources to create a great experience that will generate more contacts. But we don't do that. And as simple as I'm making it sound, it really is. It depends. You have to have a service that's in demand. If you have a service that's not in demand, well, that's a different problem. And you have to assess your business model and what you're selling. But for us, I don't know if you knew this, but cyber is pretty in demand.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Right. So we have demand, right? So we have to meet that demand. And that's what we aim to do and what we've done.
We talked a bit about marketing. I want to circle back on this. When it comes to marketing, what are your biggest challenges?
Right now, when we have a small team, it is very difficult for us or any small business to generate the amount of marketing material that's needed and maintain it, especially if you're multi-service. So cybersecurity is a very interesting industry because it threads across a lot of different things, and each one of those can be considered its own specialization, right? So you need to have information about each of those things that are relevant to the clients that you're trying to attract. Well, this repository of information gets very large, very quick, and someone's got to write it all. Now, I know what everybody's going to say. You can use ChatGPT, right? but you still have to make it your own, and you have to put what's special about you inside that. Marketing is not just regurgitate. They can go Google. They can go ChatGPT that for themselves. They can go Google that for themselves. What is unique about your process, what you're doing, that's going to differentiate you from other people? And I'll tell you a hard truth. There's a lot of people that can't answer that question in a professional services firm. They still don't know. And I'll be honest, I'm working on it with Shield 7. We've got some good differentiators that are coming through right now. And one of the hard parts about differentiators is you can have a genuine differentiator. Let me give you a genuine differentiator. We have the best people. If 10 firms say that, 2 are telling the truth. And the only people that get screwed in that are the 2 people telling the truth, because they're Me Too words, right? Like, when is the last time you were sold anything by somebody that said, well, we don't have the best people.
Yeah.
We're not the best, but we try really hard. You know, like, so while that could be a differentiator for those 2 firms, it's not to the perceived rest of the world. And that's, life's unfair, right? So we have to find something else that sets us apart. That's a big differentiator for us, is that we have the talent, but I can't just say that. So how do we differentiate? Well, we manage some of the largest environments available, and we can speak directly to that. So when we say yes, but we're managing environments with over 2,000 network perimeter security devices, people go, oh. And then they go back to check with the other people. They say, what's the largest environment you manage? I don't know, like 10 firewalls. This is night and day. That's a differentiator. So when I'm talking to enterprises, because I'm after the mid-market and the enterprise market, I have a strong differentiator, because I'm not just leveraging because I said so, I'm leveraging experience that is uncommon, that other people don't have. There are firms that do that, but now the pool is this big as opposed to this big, right? Yeah. I've cut the pool market down substantially. And that's a really great difference for us.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's a really good example. The way I've always looked at differentiators is, it's okay if there's some crossover, right? Because I mean, look, anybody can say this stuff, right? Like you said, hey, we've got the best people. As long as nobody can check all of your differentiators off, you have created differentiation there. Some of your competitors have said, we got the best people. You say that, but you have another differentiator, which you just touched on. Nobody else can check that, right? So now you have multiple differentiators, and nobody can say that they have every single one of those differentiators. That's created that differentiation, even if there is some crossover. So I don't know. That's the way that I've always thought about it. You got to have multiple differentiators. Usually one is not enough.
I absolutely agree. And I'm not being rude. I've got to tell someone not to knock on my door.
Yeah, that's right. Michael, this has been a fantastic conversation. You've shared a ton of great stuff. I want to ask you one last question before we wrap things up, and that's, knowing what you know now, is there anything you would do differently?
Are you serious? Absolutely.
Yeah. What are some of the first things that
I don't have regrets, but I would do things differently. Yes, absolutely.
What are the things that come to mind that you would do different?
I would specialize quicker.
Okay.
I did invest the majority. I would invest my profits into growth sooner and understand what later looks like as opposed to the near term. I would focus all of my energy into only the most critical processes that made sure that my product was delivered correctly, and sink all of my remaining resources into opportunity. Because the death of a small business, why does any business fail? When expenses exceed revenue. It's not more, or maybe a better way to say it is, expenses exceed income.
Yeah.
And for the plight of a small business is building revenue. And I think every small business owner, when they're small, like, this is a great trap for product companies. A product company will continue to work on this product and make it better and better and better. But nobody's getting it out there. nobody's selling it. Nobody's building the marketing material. And they're like, oh, we just added a new feature. People are going to love that. But nobody's there. No one's at the game. No one's buying popcorn. No one's watching, right? You have to get people to the game to see all the great things that you're doing. And that's true.
Right.
It's true for services firms. So I would channel sales and marketing the hardest. I would commit to the processes that only provide value to my clients from a production perspective. Meaning, as long as they're getting a better experience, everything in our industry is about client satisfaction. There is nothing else.
I love it.
So that's where I would change it.
Where can people go to learn more about you? Shield 7.
Shield 7. Go to shield7.com. You'll learn about our 4 major pillars there. We're a best in breed engineering firm. We put engineering first, and we're backed by world-class products. And I would love for people to check us out. So if you get a chance, hit me up.
Please do so. Michael has shared a lot of really great stuff today. I was taking notes. I hope you were as well. Shield7.com. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. For those of you that are watching, listening, I appreciate you as well. We've been talking a lot about growth and how to accelerate it. If you want to identify which of the 9 revenue roadblocks are slowing down your growth, head on over to revenueroadblockscorecard.com. You can also connect with us over at rialtomarketing.com. Thanks so much. Till next time, take care.